is part one of the story. The universe has a peculiar sense of humor. It waits until your hands are literally full of a wriggling, sugar-high 5-year-old and a leaking grocery bagger before it decides to drop a bomb at your feet. For me, that bomb came in the form of a sleek, black car pulling into my driveway just as I was trying to wrangle my daughter, Lily, and the remnants of our weekly shop. "Daddy, my Elsa yogurt is melting," Lily announced, her voice a high-pitched siren against the quiet hum of our suburban evening. "I know, sweetie, I know," I grunted, juggling the bags to find my keys. The paper bag from the bakery was damp, a sure sign the bread inside was doomed. My phone buzzed in my pocket for the 5th time. Work. It was always work. I finally got the door open, ushered Lily inside with a gentle nudge, and set the bags down on the kitchen floor with a sigh of relief. I was just about to investigate the damage when I heard it, the crunch of tires on gravel. I turned. A black sedan I recognized all too well was pulling to a stop behind my 10-year-old pickup truck. My stomach, which had just begun to unclench, knotted up again. It was Eleanor Vance's car. Eleanor Vance, my boss, the CEO of Vance Financial. She was a figure of myth in our a brilliant, demanding, and possessed of a composure so absolute it made glaciers look flighty. In 5 years, I'd never seen her so much as fluff a strand of her perfectly styled silver hair. She lived and breathed spreadsheets and quarterly projections. She didn't make house calls. My first, irrational thought was that I'd made some catastrophic error on the Q3 report. My second was that I was about to be fired. My third was a panicked glance at the chaotic scene behind me: Lily's shoes by the door, a cereal spill on the counter, the faint smell of fish sticks from last night. Before I could formulate a plan, the car door opened. She stepped out, looking as immaculate and out of place on my quiet street as a swan in a chicken coop. She was in her late 50s. Dressed in a dark, tailored pantsuit, her expression unreadable behind a pair of sunglasses, even though the sun was beginning its descent. "Mr. Cole," she said, her voice carrying clearly across the short distance. I wiped my suddenly clammy hands on my jeans and walked out onto the porch, pulling the door mostly shut behind me. "Miss Vance, this is a surprise." "I apologize for arriving unannounced," she said, removing her sunglasses. Her eyes, usually sharp as flint in board meetings, looked different. "Tired, maybe even a little lost." "I tried your phone several times." "My phone?" "Right." It was still in my pocket, probably buzzing itself into a coma. "I'm sorry, I was a broken bar grocery shopping." I gestured weakly towards the house, as if that explained the chaos within. "Of course, with your daughter," she said, her gaze softening almost imperceptibly as it drifted to the window where I knew Lily was probably already pressing her face to the glass. "I should have called your office line." This was a broken bar impulsive. I'm not used to being impulsive. An awkward silence hung between us. I was acutely aware of my grass needing a mow and the chipping paint on the porch railing. "Is everything all right with the company?" I finally asked, the question feeling foolish as soon as it left my mouth. If the company was on fire, she'd be in the boardroom, not my driveway. "The company is fine," she said, a flicker of her usual professional self returning for a moment. Then it vanished. "This isn't about the company, Oliver." Oliver. She'd never called me by my first name before. It was always a Cole or a Mr. Cole. The familiarity of it was jarring. "May I come in?" she asked. It was a request, but from Eleanor Vance, it carried the weight of a royal decree. What could I say? No? Of course, I managed, opening the door. The scene inside was worse than I remembered. Lily was indeed at the window, her nose pressed flat against the glass. She spun around as we entered, her eyes wide. "Daddy, who's that lady?" she whispered, in the tone that was anything but a whisper. "This is my boss, honey." "Miss Vance," I said, shooting Lily a pleading look to be on her best behavior. "Miss Vance, this is my daughter, Lily." Eleanor Vance, the woman who could make a room full of executives tremble with a single raised eyebrow, looked at my daughter. And then, she did something that completely short-circuited my brain. She smiled. A real, genuine smile that reached her eyes and carved laugh lines around them I never knew existed. "Hello, Lily," she said, her voice losing its corporate edge. That's a very beautiful name. Lily, never one to be shy, grinned back, revealing the gap where she'd lost a tooth last week. I'm named after a flower. Daddy says I'm his sunshine. Eleanor's gaze flickered to me for a second, something unreadable passing through it. Your daddy is a very wise man. The domestic chaos suddenly felt overwhelming. Can I get you some coffee, or water? I asked, desperate to regain some semblance of control. Water would be lovely, thank you. I busied myself at the sink, filling a glass, my mind racing. Why was she here? The Elsa yogurt sat forlornly on the counter, a puddle of bloom melting around it. I grabbed a towel, soaking up the mess, my movements jerky with anxiety. When I turned back, glass in hand, I froze. Eleanor was kneeling on the floor. The CEO of a multi-million-dollar corporation was on her knees on my slightly sticky linoleum, helping Lily put the scattered plastic toys back into their bin. Lily was chattering away, explaining the intricate social hierarchy of her My Little Ponies, and Eleanor was listening. Actually listening, nodding along as if Lily were presenting a quarterly earnings report. Here you are, I said, my voice a little too loud, as I handed her the glass. She took it gracefully, rising to her feet. Thank you. She took a small sip, then looked around the room. Her eyes landed on a framed photo on the bookshelf of Lily and me at the beach last summer, my late wife's absence a silent, invisible third figure in the frame. Her expression didn't change, but I felt like she saw it. Saw the whole story. Oliver, she began, then paused. For the first time since I'd known her, Eleanor Vance looked a broken bar uncertain. She turned to face me fully, her hands wrapped around the glass. What I'm about to say a broken bar. I have no right to say it. I have no right to come here, to your home, and disrupt your evening. But I find myself in a position I have never been in before. A position where my usual methods, my usual armor, is useless. I stood there, holding the damp towel, utterly lost. Is everything okay, Miss Vance? She closed her eyes for a brief second. Eleanor, please, call me Eleanor. The silence stretched, thick and heavy. Lily, sensing the shift in the adult atmosphere, went quiet, clutching her purple pony to her chest. Eleanor took a deep breath, and when she opened her eyes, they were fixed on mine. The mask was completely gone. What I saw underneath was raw, human, and terrified. I'm dying, Oliver, she said, her voice barely a whisper. The words hung in the air, not quite making sense. The towel slipped from my hand and landed on the floor with a soft, wet thud. Here is part 2. The world didn't stop. The refrigerator hummed. A car drove by outside. Lily's Elsa yogurt continued its slow, melting demise. But for me, everything had gone silent. I'm sorry, I heard myself say, the words feeling like they belonged to someone else. Eleonora. I had to start thinking of her as Eleonora set the water glass down on the counter with a steady hand that belied the bombshell she just dropped. Pancreatic. Stage 4. They gave me 6 months, maybe 8 if I'm lucky. She said it the way she might announce a quarterly deficit, a factual, unemotional, already analyzed from every angle. That was 3 months ago. 3 months. She'd been sitting in board meetings, approving budgets, tearing apart inadequate proposals, all while carrying this. And none of us had noticed. How could we not have noticed? Daddy, what's dying? Lily's small voice cut through the fog. I looked down at her, those big blue eyes so full of innocent curiosity, and felt the weight of 2 worlds crashing together. Sweetie, can you go play in your room for a little while? Daddy needs to talk to Miss Vance. But I want to show her my pony Castle. Lily. My voice came out sharper than I intended. Her face crumpled slightly, and I immediately knelt down, guilt flooding through me. I'm sorry, baby. I didn't mean to be snappy. Please, just for a little bit. I'll come read you an extra story tonight. She considered this, the negotiation instincts of a 5-year-old clearly calculating the value of emotional leverage. 2 stories. 1.5. Deal. She grabbed her pony and padded down the hallway, casting one last curious glance back at the strange lady before disappearing into her room. I stood up slowly, my knees popping. When I turned back to Eleanor, She was watching me with an expression I couldn't read. "You're good with her," she said quietly. "I'm winging it every single day." I ran a hand through my hair, the nervous habit I'd never been able to break. "I don't understand, Miss Vanciu Eleanor. Why are you here? Shouldn't you be with family, or doctors, or—" I trailed off, realizing how cruel that sounded. "I have no family." She said it simply, without self-pity. "Never married. No children. My parents passed years ago. There's a sister in Oregon, but we haven't spoken in a decade." She picked up the water glass again, holding it like a lifeline. "The doctors I see 3 times a week. They're very professional. They tell me what my numbers are and when to come back for more poison." The bitterness in the last word was the first crack in her armor since she'd arrived. "So why me?" The question came out smaller than I intended. I'm your junior analyst. I file reports. I make spreadsheets. I'm nobody." Eleanor set the glass down and took a step closer. Not close enough to be threatening, but close enough that I could see the fine lines around her eyes, the slight pallor beneath her carefully applied makeup that I'd never noticed before. "Oliver, do you know why I promoted you 3 years ago? When Henderson retired and I could have brought in anyone from outside." I shook my head. I'd always assumed it was because I worked hard, kept my head down, never caused trouble. I had 67 applications for that position. 67 qualified candidates with impressive resumes and glowing recommendations. She paused. "You were the only one who, when I asked what you would do if a project required you to miss your daughter's birthday, told me you'd find a way to do both, and if you couldn't, you'd turn down the project." I remembered that interview. I'd been sure my honesty had cost me the job. Do you know what everyone else said? Every single one of them told me they'd prioritize the project. That family came second to the work. They thought that's what I wanted to hear. A sad smile touched her lips. "I've spent 40 years building a company. I've sat in rooms with presidents and billionaires. I've been lied to, flattered, feared, and resented. But in all that time, no one ever just told me the truth the way you did." I didn't know what to say. The kitchen felt too small, the air too thick. When Sarah died, I finally managed, speaking of my wife for the first time with someone who hadn't known her, I thought about quitting, selling the house, moving somewhere cheaper, just disappearing. But Lily, she needed stability. She needed routine. So I stayed. I showed up. I did my job. That's all it was. Survival. I know. Eleanor's voice was impossibly gentle. "I watched you, not in a creepy way," she added quickly, a flash of her usual dry humor breaking through. "But I noticed. You never missed a deadline. You never made excuses. You just kept going, day after day." For her, a lump formed in my throat. I swallowed hard against it. "So here's the thing, Oliver." Eleanor squared her shoulders, and for a moment, she was the CEO again, preparing to deliver difficult news. "I'm dying, and I've spent my entire life building something I have no one to leave it to. No one who matters." The implication hung in the air between us. I must have misunderstood. I had to be misunderstanding. "Eleanor, I don't. I'm not offering you charity," she cut me off, reading my mind with that unnerving precision of hers. "I'm not offering you a handout. I'm offering you a partnership. I have 6 months, if I'm lucky, maybe less. I want to spend them teaching you everything I know. Not just the spreadsheets and the reports are the real things. The things that aren't in any manual. How to read people, how to negotiate, how to see around corners." She took a breath. "And when I'm gone, I want you to have it. The company, all of it." The floor seemed to tilt beneath me. I grabbed the counter for support. "That's insane. You don't even know me." "Not really. I know you better than you think." She reached into her jacket pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "I had my lawyers draw this up. It's a provisional agreement. You become my executive assistant, technically a demotion. I know, but you work directly with me, daily, hourly, for the next 6 months. You learn everything." And at the end, she unfolded the paper, revealing dense legal text. 60% ownership transfers to you. The remaining 40 goes to a charitable foundation in your name. with you as sole director. I stared at the paper like it was a live snake. Why 60? Why not all of it? Because you need to earn the rest. And because I need to know, before I go, that you'll use it the right way. She folded the paper and held it out to me. I've watched you, Oliver. I've watched you struggle and sacrifice and never once complain. I've watched you raise that beautiful little girl with more love in your little finger than most families have in their whole house. I've watched you be a good man in a world that doesn't reward goodness. Her hand trembled slightly, the paper rustling. It was the first sign of weakness I'd seen since she'd arrived. I'm not a good man because I'm trying to be, I said quietly. I'm a good man because I'm terrified of what happens to Lily if I'm not. Exactly. Eleanor's eyes glistened, but she blinked rapidly, refusing to let the tears fall. Don't you see? That's precisely why it has to be you. Fear-based goodness is the only kind that lasts. The kind that comes from ease, from comfort that evaporates the moment things get hard. But yours is forged in fire. Yours is real. From down the hall, I heard Lily's voice singing to her ponies, the tune slightly off-key but utterly joyful. The sound of a child who felt safe, who didn't know that her entire world rested on the shoulders of a man who went to sleep every night terrified he wasn't enough. You'd have to move, Eleanor continued, pressing her advantage like the brilliant negotiator she was. My estate has a guest house, separate entrance, private yard for Lily, better schools than here, security, stability. She paused. And you'd never have to worry about money again, not for her education, not for her future, not for anything. The manipulative genius of it was staggering. She'd found every single one of my pressure points and was pressing them with surgical precision. And the worst part, to the absolute worst part, was that I couldn't even be angry about it because she was right. I need to think about it. The words came out strangled. Of course. She set the paper on the counter. Take tonight. Tomorrow morning, I have an appointment with my oncologist at 9. If you want to talk more, meet me there. She pulled a card from her pocket, and not her business card, but a plain white one with an address and time handwritten in elegant script. If you don't show up, I'll understand. I'll tear up the papers, and you'll never hear about this again. You can keep your job, keep your life, and pretend tonight never happened. She walked toward the door, then paused with her hand on the knob. There's something else, she said without turning around. Something I haven't told anyone. Not my doctors, not my lawyers, not a single soul. I waited. I'm not just dying, Oliver. I'm terrified. I've been brave my whole life because I had to be. Because if I stopped being brave for even a second, everything would fall apart. Her voice cracked, just slightly. But I can't be brave about this. I can't face it alone. And I realized, a few weeks ago, that the only person I wanted with me at the end was the one person who'd never wanted anything from me. She opened the door. The evening air rushed in, cool and clean. I'm not asking you to save me. I'm asking you to sit with me while I figure out how to do this, and maybe, in the process, I can save you. The door clicked shut behind her. Through the window, I watched her walk to her car, get in, and drive away, the taillights disappearing around the corner. I stood in my kitchen for a long time, the folded paper heavy on the counter, the sound of Lily's singing floating down the hallway. And for the first time since Sarah died, I felt something other than exhaustion. I felt hope, and that, more than anything else, terrified me.